This is my fourth entry into my RPG design skills, focusing on adventures and characters. In my previous video, I talked about Let's Plays. Some games, like Bluebeard's Bride, are too simple to accommodate Let's Plays. These games are often made to tell a specific story, so a Let's Play would sort of defeat most of the purpose of playing the game. If you're designing a more complex game, then it's a good idea to offer a Let's Play. To do this, however, you need an adventure, preferably a different one from the one included in your game. An introductory adventure is your chance to tell a typical story, but introductory adventures can also teach how to play. The first place I saw this was in Auspicious Beginnings for Weapons of the Gods. I downloaded the adventure because it doesn't come with the game. It does, however, teach you to use dice pools, then to save a few roll dice, and then how to use your powers, and so on. This implies a certain number of encounters, depending on how complex your game is. With most games, you don't want to jump into fights right away, because that's usually the most complex part of the game. Make sure the first couple of encounters explore basic actions, which also gives you a chance to show off a bit of your setting and suggestions. There's another option that I haven't done in any product besides my own RPGs, and that's to let the players explore their own motivations as part of the adventure. Essentially, this looks like an introduction to an adventure, quickly giving examples for how the rules work before letting the players take control. In my game, Metropolitan Luxury Coffin 2.0, instead of dictating a series of activities, the characters want to make money and are allowed to do that any way they can dream up. But speaking of characters, you should probably include a few pre-made ones for the players to use. This guarantees that they've got the necessary skills or stats. This, however, presents three options: just stats, desires, and backstories. Generally, I find mentioning desires helps immerse the players more than just stats. Avoid complicated backstories in favor of hints as to how the characters got to where they are. Non-player characters, however, or NPCs as we call them, don't usually need backstories. They may not even need stats. Have you ever played through a tavern brawl where everyone was a fully statted out character? Usually not. If they're important enough NPCs, give them a name and maybe a role. The third thing in creating an NPC is determine what they want and then start assigning them stats. This means choosing a number and then justifying it by determining the stats and skills behind it later. I've learned this method through lots of playing, but no RPG, that I've seen anyways, includes it in the rules. Speaking of rules, there are a lot of them, even more than for player characters. Some typical rules include authority figures, merchants, workers, farmers, doctors, kids, but individual settings can provide other suggestions. Knowing someone's role can help determine their desires too. Not all NPCs need stats, but the simpler you make character creation, the easier it will be to make new ones. Be careful with simplifying them too much, however, because that simplification comes with assumptions, like assuming everyone is an adult. Most rules, like Legend of the Five Rings, differentiates heroes, handles regular people only marginally, and definitely doesn't handle kids very well. Another assumption is that humans, or whatever species the players control, are the only ones who change significantly, making everything else a monster. If you need a villain, then designing a monster allows the characters to kill them without appearing immoral. Admittedly, some settings like cyberpunk, colonialist, or horror turn this on their heads by humanizing the monsters. Typical D&D monsters don't usually make decisions, but I found that outlining one or two motivations can make them far more believable. Some GMs even go so far as to describe their tactics. This is great, but usually better left to the GM, not the designer. There are other types of characters that I haven't addressed yet, such as weather, places, or objects. These I'll save for a future video. I could also make a video talking about introductory chapters, but there's not too much to explore there that's new. Instead, the series will continue addressing publishing concerns. Because that's almost a new series, however, I plan on taking a short break to explore something else. Keep an eye on the channel to find out what. Until then, this is just some of what I've been thinking about lately. Have yourself a great day, and Dewey!